coming in hot.
We are. Guess what we were doing right before this? We were talking about how our families together would be the most ultimate jingle writers ever.
Yes. Apparently, by the way, this is episode 233, but Sarah's husband created a song.
Super good.
When they take their dog to the... What do they call it?
Doggy daycare.
Daycare.
Yeah.
How's the song go?
It goes, licking butts and meeting mutts. We're having a good time at Splash.
Have you told the people at
Of
Splash?
course.
They should use that.
That's what we said.
They weren't into it?
Well, here's the little detail, is that we moved and we go to another place now that is called Camp Opie and doesn't have its song, but we still sing the Splash song when we take the dogs.
You have
because
to change
think
it.
The dogs know. They know.
They know.
You're going to be really annoyed by this, what I'm about to say, but I read a study recently, and you're going to be like, oh, God, why are they still studying this? That proves that dogs use facial expressions to elicit a response from humans.
We've discussed that, yes.
But this is the thing, is like this is like new information that just came out. It's like people keep studying this in different forms, which is just giving us more information that sounds like previous studies that I keep bringing up on here.
Yeah.
So that's why I figured you were going to be annoyed with this, because you were going to say, we've already talked about this, and I want to be like,
but I get it,
it's
though,
a new
because
study, though.
If you have a dog, I'm sure there is a really strong desire to feel like they...
I mean, you know Bo.
Right. My son talks about Bo all the time.
Oh, she's the best. Everybody talks about her all the time.
Remember recently when we talked about the pet psychic?
Yes.
Then we had a listener email us and say that she had gone to a pet psychic.
Yeah.
And she's like, some of it is like the stuff you would expect where they're like, your dog says she loves her mommy. But but she did say that the pet psychic told her something about like the dog or the cat, I forget, really needs water.
Oh.
And she thought that was really weird. But then a couple years later, the cat was on death's door because it had some sort of disease where it wasn't getting enough water. What? Like the body was just flushing it out or something.
Whoa.
She's like, so maybe.
Whoa.
Well, Sarah's now a believer.
Well, I'm like, I got to take Sigmund. There's too much attitude in there for...
You think?
I came home yesterday. I just got these new lounge chairs, like patio lounge chairs.
Yeah.
Not as cool as yours, but still cool. And they have these cushions on them and everything, and I had them all set up nice with my pillows. I came home, and it looked like my dogs had thrown a party.
Oh.
And the lounge chairs were in other, like different places. The cushions were all over. I'm like, what shenanigans happened back here?
You need to get what we have, the cameras everywhere, because that is some good
but,
times.
You know, after spending 10 years on the camera, I feel like I don't want that in my living situation.
Let me make a case for it.
Yeah. But when we have kids, probably.
Well, we have them set up throughout the house, mainly because you scared the crap out of me when I moved into this house.
Well,
and you're like, just
moved
so
into
you know,
a murder house.
Yeah. Sarah told me that our house is the kind that serial killers scout.
For the record, let the record show that what I said was I quote out of the book we were reading, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, where they said this house, this style provided
the perfect
easy
crime scene
for murderers.
So then we invest like $1 million in all these cameras, and they go on at a certain time. And then if I am up at that time, then if I were to walk through my living room, it will notify my phone like there is activity in the living room, right?
Yes.
So I sent Adam out into the bedroom, or out of the bedroom. I'm like, hey, go get me some wine or whatever. And he goes out, and so then he activated the motion sensor on the way. And then when he came back in, he's like, hey, I activated the motion sensor. Let's watch. And I'm like, I know what you look like. I don't need to watch this footage. And then he played it. First of all, he was naked. And he became like a Yeti. He was like doing this motion with his body, like a Thriller choreography. And the way that the camera worked, it wasn't like I could see him walking in and then he did it. It was like he appeared as if from nowhere. So just that alone
provides tons of activity.
Yeah, but you should get it for your dogs.
Yeah, just because it's like hilarious. And I wouldn't be surprised if Sigmund is like a dictator in the neighborhood, and all the dogs come over, and he like holds court and like tells them what to do.
It's
and
like
then
the Secret Life of Pets.
I feel like it would be like that. My dog Sigmund is like running the show.
But I mean,
and then Bo's his like.
If I were going to take one of your dogs, though, I would take Bo to the pet psychic because she seems like an old soul.
Yeah, and she's got stories. I just know.
I know.
She was a street dog till she was 3. So, life on the street, man.
What streets?
I don't know. Some streets. I like
in the United States.
I don't know if it was. I think it was like in the country, like in the United States, but like out because she came from like the Central California, like middle of nowhere, kind of agriculture.
Oh come on! They just said that to you.
Well, I don't know
I can't even believe that could be a thing.
Yeah, dog. I like a dog, like running like. This just in. There are stray dogs in the United States too, Suze.
I'm just saying, like
it's like news flash for one.
I thought that they have those dog catchers with the nets running after those guys. I don't know, Sarah. Okay, stay on track.
Yeah.
We have a guest later, by the way, that is going to be such a great interview. Lucas Mann is his name. He has a book called Captive Audience. The subtitle is On Love and Reality TV.
Super cool.
It's so interesting. But yeah, that's coming up later. I read an article. Would you like to hear about it?
Yes.
That it reeled me in because the title told me to eat popcorn with chopsticks.
Oh, okay. I can see where we're going with this.
Tell me what you think. I knew you'd get it.
Because it slows it down. What we do is shove, if you're anything like me, the goal of popcorn is to shove as many kernels in your mouth at one time.
Well.
Right?
False.
What?
So, that can be a great way to slow down eating popcorn. Yeah. But the point of the article was actually about how the human brain craves novelty. And that if you eat popcorn with chopsticks, for example, that you'll enjoy it more.
Oh, that makes for a much longer article than
because
quick answer I gave.
Because it said in the control group they had people eat one kernel slowly with their hands, so they controlled the speed for both.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about the speed.
It's the novelty.
Yeah, and it made me think about that's a great reason why date nights are so important for married people. Because you might be with each other all the time, but you have to change the setting and you have to change the context. And
we even talked about the brain-loving novelty when we read Hitmakers.
Exactly.
And how it all goes back to that perfect balance of familiarity and novelty.
Ding!
Yeah.
Yes.
That's really cool. And you know what food it reminds me of? It makes me think of when I think of all this stuff?
What?
Why people love lobster and crab and oysters and things where you have to...
It's a whole production.
It's a whole thing. And it's like kind of like you put the... And Landon was... We were just talking about lobster this weekend like you do. And like having this conversation.
I saw your Insta story with some yummy food.
Oh my God. We were just eating it up.
Yeah.
And so, he's like, oh yeah, it's more fun when... Like I don't want to do it at a restaurant... where it's like a nice restaurant, I feel like I have to work. But I do like to do it if it's at a, like, one of those, like, you're on the East Coast and it's like the main cookout.
The boils.
Yes, where you have to put the bib on. And that
is so fun.
What he likes is the novelty of it.
Yeah.
Is like the bib and the cracking and the whole, like,
It's an event.
It's not the food itself.
Yeah. But this was saying that it will actually additionally improve your enjoyment of the taste. Which is so cool. But I just thought, that's a good reminder. I guess I'm bringing
chopsticks to the movie theaters.
Yeah. Right. I don't know. I just love simple things like that can represent broader themes where you're like, yeah, I should apply that to parenting. Like, if you're doing the same crap every day, which I'm very routine.
Right.
But then if you change it up, it can change the dynamic of relationships and how you see people. That's the same for us.
Right.
Because you and I see each other here. But, like, when we go to dinner...
Oh, my gosh. Hello. Yeah.
It gets interesting.
Here's what I'm thinking, though. Is there a point of... What do they call that?
Like a limit?
Yes. Like where... there's a specific name for this. where you get to a certain point and then it starts having almost the negative effect.
I get what
you
you're
guys
saying.
are yelling at all the sciencey people are like screaming this into the phone, radio right now, whatever it is. But
into the Victrola.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I saw, this is total aside, but a whole Victrola that works made out of chocolate. What? And it was like 4 feet tall.
Where did you see this?
Well, just on Instagram, but like it really worked.
What?
Yeah, it was so cool.
The whole thing was...
The whole thing. It worked.
I don't know what to say.
It's phenomenal.
What song was it playing? What record? Was the record chocolate? This is sick. It can't be. There's no way.
I'm going to show you the picture. I'm going to find this.
You probably. This happens all the time where you'll bring something up and then you're always shocked that I care this much.
Yeah, I was like, this isn't. Now I have to write this down. I've got to find a video. Chocolate Victrola.
I'm supposed to just be like, oh, that's cool.
That's what I thought was going to happen here. I don't even remember the original conversation.
Another thing that's cool is having. Oh, and I wanted to say this about this product, Brooklyn and Sheets.
Oh yeah.
I was thinking about how, how like you want to change, for example, the popcorn chopsticks thing. Yeah. But like you can't afford to redo your whole kitchen or your whole bedroom or whatever. I was just thinking about how just changing your sheets, you can get a whole new look.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
On your room and the way, the feel.
And I think it's cool to have like a seasonal set to be like, if you can, then it's nice to have like fall color one and more spring color one. I always was
coveting, like, when I would look through catalogs of, furniture companies, and they would have, like, a Christmas look. Yeah. And then in spring and summer, it'd be, like, seashells and white.
I mean, you can change the entire room with just a duvet cover. The color. That's
yes.
It. Yeah.
Brooklyn is so great. They are the sheets we've been talking about forever because they cut out the middleman, and they're so comfortable, but they don't have that big markup. So you can upgrade your nightly routine and help you feel more rested, and it looks really gorgeous and feels good. I bought a set for one of our listeners. Do you want to hear about it?
Yes. What?
So I get a lot of comments about our partners, and people always wonder, are they really good? And our listeners will share their own experiences, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. But there was one girl that was like, I don't know. I'm skeptical. They're just sheets. So I'm like, I'm going to buy you a set, and you have to promise to give a review. Oh. And so I sent her a full set of sheets.
Suze.
I know. Money bags over here.
Jeez.
But they're affordable, so it's no big whoop.
Hello. She's going to have a seasonal collection now.
She gave a review, and she was like, I was skeptical. We put them on, and she's like, they kept getting better, which is what we always say.
They're so soft
They're so soft, and they don't fade or whatever.
So nice and bright blue.
I want you guys to try the luxury bedding. I can't buy them for each of you, but I will assure you they are wonderful and underpriced. The Brooklyn sheets are the best, most comfortable sheets I've slept on. Brooklinen.com has an exclusive offer just for our listeners. Get $20 off and free shipping when you use promo code BRAIN at brooklinen.com. Brooklinen is so confident they offer a risk-free 60-night satisfaction guarantee and a lifetime warranty on all their sheets and comforters. The only way to get $20 off and free shipping is to use promo code BRAIN at brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com, promo code BRAIN. They are the best sheets ever. All right, so what else do you want to talk about?
Okay. This is, would you like to know? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, the history of?
Always.
New car smell or toothbrushes?
Oh, this is so hard.
Dentistry or new car smell?
I'm going to go with new car smell.
Okay. What do you think a new car smell is? First of all, do you like a new car smell?
Yeah.
We all do, right? Mm-hmm. And so, interesting about the new car smell, I was listening to this whole thing on like what is new car smell.
Yeah.
But I really thought they were going to tell me it's a combination of like lavender and leather and blah 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 blah.
Lavender.
The weird thing about people reporting the new car smell is that every single person, well, not every person, but the majority of people all report different smells. Like there's no consistency in the reports. You have got to be kidding. Absolutely none.
What do you consider?
Because what it is our emotional tie to getting a new vehicle. The actual thing that we're smelling are volatile organic compounds that are chemicals that are being released from all of the plastics material. They're basically
I'm
and
into
all
that.
right. The doctors who were like being interviewed for this said it's almost dangerous to be huffing the smells of a new car smell. Like, if you could bag it, it would be the same as sniffing glue.
Yeah. And I like to do that too.
Well, and they said, like, the film, you know, when you get it, like, in newer cars, there's almost like this foggy film that is on the inside of your car that you'll have to, like, wipe off sometimes. Are you familiar with this foggy? It's, there's like a film. That is the gases that are released. And so they said it's not really that it's more like we like the act of getting a new car, so therefore we like the smell of a new car.
Sure?
Positive. And then I even dug deeper into this. I'm like, is this, because that was just one, that was like Vox's video, like, but let's see what else is out there. Every single article was like, you like volatile organic compounds. And it's all a psychosomatic thing. It's like our mind is attached to, we like a new car that smells like this, therefore we like that smell.
So if we walked into a room that had that smell,
you wouldn't like it.
Get out of here.
For real. It's like a mental like a tie that combination of, if there were a different combination of those smells and they weren't attached to buying a new car, you wouldn't like it.
It's the context.
Mm-hmm. It's the context.
I am so bummed out.
Yeah, so now I'm like, do I even like new car smell? Like when I go for that air freshener, do I even... And then the fact that we're buying air fresheners that are the scent of things that are toxic and are trying to kill us is a crazy thought to me.
Right, I've had that air freshener.
Right. It's
the
like,
new car smell.
I'd like toxic chemicals, please. Can you put that in a can? Thanks.
I mean, I think it was obvious to you that it wasn't a natural scent.
But I thought that they were going to say like something about... okay, maybe this sounds dumb, but I almost thought it was like they were going to pick out notes like when you sniff a wine and you're like, oh, I can like smell the cedar and I could smell I don't fucking know. I thought it was going to be like, and then I thought maybe that just luxury cars had all those really nice like materials and that those, you know, you go into like a nice old library and it all smells like rich mahogany and, you know, so I was thinking maybe that they're like, or like the leather of luxury vehicles, and they just mimic that scent in cars that are not as luxury.
But leather does smell good on its own.
That is true. But then they have a different air freshener for that. It's called leather.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah. I mean...
I didn't know. I've never seen the leather air freshener.
It's brown. And the little tree is brown.
Isn't that funny when you do a wine tasting, some people say they taste leather?
Oh, because
that's on the spectrum
totally
of flavors.
For sure. So is, and once you know them, like asphalt, tires, like
for
minerals.
Sure, I've experienced that.
Yep.
Like I always say it's tar.
Yeah, it is. It's whatever. Like basically that's like a lot of minerals in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it makes sense because the scent and taste function.
Right, but leather is not. But it has
but you
a smell.
Yeah. But so then when you have some wine, you're like, this tastes like my bitchin' leather jacket. Did you see where I commented on your Instagram?
Oh, no.
You had a leather jacket on recently.
Yes,
I
did.
I put beauty and you liked that.
Oh, I
but
didn't
then I
see
wrote later.
underneath.
I wrote later. And also, that's a bitchin' leather jacket.
Thanks, Suze.
Yeah, you really handled that well because it was like it was like a Stevie Nicks like leather and lace situation.
Oh, that's what I was going for.
Were you?
Soft and hard. Mm-hmm. Like a good cheese platter.
By the way, I don't know if we've talked about this, but I'll do it again. I don't care. Sarah on Instagram has, you can see for yourself if you go to her Instagram, if you go to like what she follows, there are two hashtags. One is her graduate student body, whatever, and one is cheese boards.
I'm so glad you brought this up because this, no joke, happened. This existed right one after the other in my Instagram feed this morning, and I took a picture of a screenshot of this because I was like, this has to come up again, and I have to show Susie this. So it's one of those like meme accounts called Moist Buddha, which is real funny, and it's somebody else's tweet, somebody else's tweet, and it says, "You can control white people by giving them cheese." The very next account, my hashtag cheese boards.
No.
I took a picture of it. I was like, this is so funny that came right after.
Wait a minute. First of all, let me see.
Look.
That's funny.
You can control white people with cheese. Next post, cheese boards. And I was like, they're fucking right. I gotta like that.
Why though? Why? I didn't know that it was a white people thing.
I mean.
That's embarrassing. that we love
Who
cheese
else
so
is
much.
dumb enough to pay $13 for 2 ounces of mold?
But it's delicious.
Oh, it's so fucking good. It's so good.
I really thought that it was global. Like, it was like Benetton. Everybody loved cheese.
United it's European, because you know what?
Oh.
You can't really get that.
Okay,
Cheese doesn't really exist in the same way. Did we ever have a good cheese plate in Brazil? Maybe a good charcuterie.
Right.
But no cheese.
More
More
meats.
meats.
That's a really good point that I sure as heck never thought about.
Yeah, check your cheese privilege, Suze.
It's so true. I do eat a lot of cheese, but I mean, I don't think that, what's the vitamin in cheese?
Calcium?
Yeah.
Vitamin D?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But you know what? We don't get enough of that.
No, we don't.
And the beautiful thing is there's Ritual with vitamins, which
them.
fill in the gaps that you have in your diet with vitamins and stuff for your hair, skin, and nails. But also, like, I've always had the trouble, as you know, where I take a vitamin and then I want to puke.
Right. You can't swallow them.
And so I just stopped taking vitamins until Ritual because they have the mint flavor.
Why did it take so long? What the
This
heck?
is what I'm saying.
What took so long to figure this out? And then when I take them, and you know when you burp after you have like fish oil and it tastes disgusting?
It's so gross.
This time I burp and it's like minty freshness.
It's really nice. They have
How do they do that?
mint essential oils going on in there, which help solve that problem. And they're time release, so then you don't get that sick feeling when you take them. But I have a vitamin D deficiency, my doctor told me, as well as magnesium. And so this helps me with those
You
problems.
move to California and you get a vitamin D deficiency? What's going on here?
I know. Well, a lot of us live sedentary lives, so even though it's sunny out, we're
Indoors,
inside a lot. But this helped fill that gap, and it's a subscription-based company. And it's easy to handle. Like, you can change when it comes. Like, if you forget to take it for a few days and you're not ready for your new bottle, they can snooze the order, etc. And if you go to ritual.com/braincandy, you can choose clean ingredients backed by science. Sign up now, ritual.com/braincandy. 95% of women do not get the vitamins and minerals they need on a daily basis. 95%.
That might as well be everybody. Who are these 5 women who have their shit together?
Ritual created a smarter vitamin with the 9 essential ingredients women lack most. So go to ritual.com/braincandy and give those a try. Okay. What else did I want to talk to you about? My God, did you read about the stonefish? It's like the scariest looking fish in the world. You know how sometimes you'll see these fishes and you're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I feel like I know what this one looks like.
Yeah, well, they just discovered that in addition to being horrifying and poisonous and bites people, it carries switchblades in its cheek.
Stop.
And it'll be like...
Wouldn't it be like God's joke if he had a great sense of humor? Something like that was like the funniest fish in the ocean, but nobody wants to give him the time of day.
Because it's a
empty
weaponized
show.
Isn't that terrible?
Can't fill the room, and it's just so funny.
Because he's like, what? And then out the cheeks come these switchblades that'll kick your ass.
And he's just like a real nice guy, but
he's not.
Can't catch a break.
Sarah, if you saw this thing, you would be singing a different tune.
He can go hang out with the blobfish.
Do you watch the Michelle Wolf show on Netflix?
No, I haven't.
It's really
yet.
good, and she was.
I love her.
She did a great job of talking about the Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain sadness, which I don't want to even talk about because it's too sad. But she did a great job of talking about how life is so hard, and
I said that in my interview for school. I said it's fucking hard to be a person.
It is
so hard.
And she's like, and like when you think about the ocean, it's terrifying. We don't even know what's in most of it, and the stuff we do know is so scary.
Yes.
And I was like, yes, this is why everyone is in the same boat. Rich, poor, famous, whatever. We're all just getting through it.
We're trying, and you know what? When you break it down, it's all the same shit. All we want is to be loved.
Okay.
All we want is to not feel lonely. It all comes down to the same basic needs.
Sarah.
Yes, Susie.
You bring me to my next point.
Great.
I'm obsessed with Mr. Rogers. He has a movie coming out. So I have this like Mr. Rogers' rabbit hole going on YouTube where I'm watching like interviews that he did. In the 80s, he went on The Tonight Show, which, of course, was hosted by Johnny Carson. When Johnny Carson was away, Joan Rivers would fill in.
Oh, I love that.
So Joan Rivers is the host, and Mr. Rogers comes in, and I'm thinking, like, oh, my God, this is not a match made in heaven. Because for all of his virtues, Mr. Rogers is a little bit serious. And, like, he can laugh about stuff, but he's not irreverent. And
that's
Joan is.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the interview was great, but the best part for me was when Joan is a mother, and she talked about Melissa, and she said, Melissa's favorite song of yours was that song, It's You I Like. Do you know that Mr. Rogers song? It's You I Like.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be damned.
Oh, I'm getting all the
He
feels.
sang it to her, Joan Rivers, right there.
Did she cry?
Of course.
I know. I'm about to cry even thinking of it.
She turned into her 4-year-old self.
Yeah.
She pulled the cardigan he had given her over her head like you would if you were a kid. And he did not let go of the eye contact.
Oh.
And he said, there's
That's
a part
therapy,
of the
man.
song. I have chills.
I'm like about to cry right now.
Where he says to the kids on the show, it's not your toys, they're just beside you. But he said, it's not your jokes, they're just beside you. And I mean, she was disarmed.
Oh.
I know.
Oh my God, I'm getting all the feels right now. I can't even help it.
And what for me, like I talked about it later with Adam, sobbing like a lunatic in a restaurant. And I said, here's why this is so important, especially right now.
Yeah.
We all just want to be seen. Yeah. We want to know that someone loves us just the way you are.
Yeah.
Not your clothes, not your hair, not your jokes or your toys. That's all we want.
That's all everybody wants.
And we aren't getting it.
No.
Because we're putting pictures on Instagram or we're, doing whatever, working too hard. And we just want to be seen.
And the stuff that we're showing isn't this true parts of ourselves that we want to be seen.
And if it was, if you were posting those things, people wouldn't like it probably as much. That's like the sad part.
Yeah.
Is they'd be like, ooh. Yeah. Including me, like when we saw someone that we know with tinfoil curtains. I mean, we weren't like, oh, that's too bad. We were like, what a loser.
You're totally...
So, I mean, we're all foil. We all
have tinfoil curtains somewhere.
But when I saw that, I thought, that's why he's so important, because he reminded me when I see someone and I make that connection, that matters.
So much.
And we all need that.
I wouldn't be doing the job future that I'm going into if I didn't really truly believe that.
Yeah, and what you're being paid to do is freaking see people who maybe aren't seen normally.
Yep. And I hope, my goal is that if I can see them in that room and I can hold that space for them, that they can know that they're worthy. If somebody they barely know sees that in them, then somebody else can also see that in them and love them. And hopefully the people that are within their own family can see that. And when you can get that acceptance from the people that you want to love the most, we just need more connections.
And I think the Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade thing at least did something in the way of saying that sometimes the people that you suspect have it all don't.
Have nothing.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm a little high strung and I get anxiety. Yeah. And whenever I go to the doctor to get medicine for anxiety, I feel like I have to convince her because I seem fine.
It's one of the most difficult things. It's like a duck on the waters. The analogy I use is like, it looks like it's, gliding along smoothly, but underneath, if you look at what the feet are doing, they're going 1,000,000 miles an hour. And like, God forbid something happens to that poor duck where there's some trauma where his foot is like, and something prevents him, and then they swim in a circle. It's the same thing for life,
Yeah. And so, you might look at someone and think they have it all together, but they often don't. And we could all use a little bit of like, just acceptance.
Yeah, acceptance.
Like you're fine. You're enough.
Everybody's enough.
And if you do want to cry, watch these videos of Mr. Rogers.
Oh my God, I'm just thinking of it. I'm like, that is just magic.
It was. If you can disarm Joan Rivers, you really are something. Anyway, moving on.
That's lovely.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that you appreciate me. I feel seen right now.
I see you.
I wanted to talk about something that I knew you would be into because remember how you had that incident? I think it was with the OXO company.
Oh, those mother
What do you
effers.
call them?
It's OXO. Yeah, the pots and pans.
I never know if that's how you pronounce it.
I still have a few words for them about their stupid kettle because now we got another item by them, and I'm like, stop buying their products, Landon. We talk about this fucking kettle every morning.
This really kind of ruined my whole story, but
sorry.
I love their products. I don't know what's gone wrong with you, but the article that I read was about how the company was founded. The wife, the woman who founded it, had arthritis.
Oh, no. Now I have guilt.
And she was often in the situation with like scissors and tools that were really not good for her disability. And so she was trying to design products that solved the problem that she in particular had. But really, everyone can use a better designed can opener.
That is true.
Or whatever.
However, people with arthritis probably would not like a pan that did not evenly balance on the stove.
Well, she did sell the company, so she's not doing it now. So maybe these new clowns are ruining her.
Go back to the original mission.
I was just really... It was in the New York Times. I'll put it in the newsletter. It was a really interesting story. Number one, because women are often overshadowed in the business world by... Like, her husband got all the credit for the company because I think he was the technical CEO of it or something. But she was the one doing, like, the design on these things.
Inventing of the product.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, at that time, let's put it this way, women were spending a lot of their time in the kitchen. So it's like, why not allow the people to use the products most often? I don't want, I don't know, give me some example. I don't want the person who's like selling me clothes at Nordstrom to also be like making, I don't know, fill in some analogy here. Computers.
You're leading right into what a different article I read talked about with regard to architecture and design in general, was talking about how women are now being recognized, but in the classroom, parks, anywhere that women were having to be all the time.
I feel like cars too.
Oh, maybe they didn't mention
design
that,
of, because I feel like what a mom uses a car for, what somebody who's transporting a family uses a car for, is very different than my husband uses his car to get from point A to point B, and that's it. I use mine for everything in between that we could possibly do with our family.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, I'll tell you where things need to go in this car because you don't use it.
It does seem like that with, when you see the ads for, minivans, how they're like, now it has a vacuum in it for, Cheerios.
Well, awesome. I want that.
But I just thought, I'm so glad to hear that the spaces that were occupied by women and the advancements that they created within those spaces are now being acknowledged as at the same level as the architecture of a home or a building, which got all the flashy, oh, look what they made. But now they're starting to say, oh, these spaces, even though they were more feminized, are just as important and revolutionary.
Yes.
So I like that article too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just championing women today. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh my God, keep it up, girl.
Wait. Oh, why can't I hear it? I was playing the Badass Bitches stinger.
Here, I'll get it for you.
Okay. Do you have anything on your mind?
I heard the really, kind of, it's like a little analogy that's kind of been circling around in my mind a little bit.
Okay.
I've recently been reading a lot of studies on memories and how when we go back and access them, they always change.
Me too. What was I reading? What were you reading? Was I reading the same thing? It may. Wait, what was it?
Oh my God, I love how excited you are right now. This is my favorite. I want to capture this in a bottle and just let it out every now and then.
It had to be the same thing.
Well,
that's why I'm
mine was could this eternal sunshine of the spotless mind really happen?
Oh.
Could we erase memories?
What do you think?
Because
I think so.
They've isolated a I think it's a protein propranolol. It's like a drug that they can inject into certain areas that will cause you to detach from the emotional connection to the memory, and it'll help you see the memory very linear. And so if you take away the emotion of it, then it doesn't hold on as strong in your mind. It doesn't like create as strong of a synapse to those emotional places. And they're using it very successfully with PTSD.
We read the same thing, but it's bothering me that I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I think it's probably that this is like a study that maybe just came out, and they've like collected. Because then I went down like a rabbit hole of reading a bunch of stuff on this.
Yeah,
I'm sure somewhere the lines crossed of articles, or like there was an overlap. And this is the analogy
that's the medicine that they use for blood pressure.
I think yes, I think so. I think it does. It helps. It's like for heart rate, like to make, I guess blood pressure. Like it's to stop that adrenaline response. Like
here's what's going to happen. When we're done recording, I'm going to remember where I read it, and then I'm going to edit that into this moment right now because it's making me crazy. But go ahead. Yes.
The analogy that they used that I really loved, because it's so interesting that when we go back and access each of those memories, they're changed every single time.
Yes, or they can be.
Yes.
They're elastic.
Yes.
So they can be strengthened or weakened.
Yes. And based on, because everything is just like if you break down a memory to the most basic, it is an electric impulse going from one synapse to another, but it happening across a whole bunch of different synapses. So it's like making different associations and connections. And a memory is really just a way that we associate what's happening right now with things that have happened in the past. So if you can like break those associations, then you can theoretically erase the memory. And so what they said that has stuck with me is that memories are like a bar of chocolate in the refrigerator. And every time you go back and rethink about whatever that memory was, it's like taking the chocolate bar out and holding it in your hand for a little bit. And no matter what you do, every time you go put it back in the refrigerator, something about the shape of that chocolate bar has changed a little bit because your hand is, just it's being taken out and being accessed. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what we do with memories. So like you can't trust your memories, and it's crazy.
I hope they can do it someday because there's a lot of crap I want to get rid of.
Well, that's the ethical line that they were like, that kind of like worries scientists because it can be used for good and it can be
sure.
It shouldn't be used. Like there's a very important reason why we have memories.
Yeah.
We wouldn't like those. They're crucial. We need them to make, for the future. And people who haven't gone through traumatic events have a harder time, dealing with any problems in the future. And if you have dealt with something difficult, then it's easier to deal with things later because we have those memories and we're like, oh, we got over it. So it's super important. Yeah. And they say that what they're worried about are people who have a lot of resources just being able to pick and choose the things that they want. Like, let's erase some really rich guy kills somebody while texting in a vehicular manslaughter situation, and then he gets to erase that memory and not have to deal with any of the
right.
Is that
fair?
Is that fair?
Yeah.
And then really it's who has the money to be able to do that and who doesn't.
Right.
Ugh.
Right.
That could create a really world of people who never thought they ever did anything bad. What would that do?
It's troubling. It's always been troubling to me how unreliable memory is.
Yeah.
I mean, even if we're not even talking about like eyewitness accounts and the problems there.
So unreliable.
I mean, that's a whole terrible thing in and of itself. But even just like for our own lives and memories of our past, and you think you got it all, and that bothers me.
It bothers me so much.
Because you can feel certain.
Yeah.
And then it's not the way it actually
And if Laura Liani taught us anything.
You're obsessed with that. That's the third time you brought it up. Why? I read an article about how the reason why people get so worked up about that stuff is because it really does make you question, like, truth with a capital T.
Don't you think it's the same reason I get excited about magic?
Now, I think that's because you're a dork.
Touche.
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah,
people who don't care about, like, we've been over this about the people who are like whatevs to magic.
I know.
Often
I love
are
you.
like,
True.
I don't care about anything.
Sarah's so defensive.
Magic is really cool, okay?
When someone does it well, it is. The problem is there's a lot of really crappy magicians.
Oh, I just saw somewhere like a magician that I follow on Instagram. Yeah. I follow more than just cheese boards.
Right.
Cheese boards and magicians.
I should log into your Instagram and start adding hashtags, like just for a prank.
Wait, you know what? Just for... side note, my Instagram often has people that I'm following that I swear I did not follow.
Like who?
Like random, like some, like woman blogger from like Texas,
didn't do
like
that.
weird ones.
I didn't do it.
Where she like loves the Lord, and I'm like, I don't
That's
know.
really strange.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a sponsored one?
No. So, and this happens a lot where I'm like, I did not follow any of these fucking people. What? This is just facts, Susie. I need help.
So what do you do? Unfollow them?
Yes. All the time I'm unfollowing people, and I'm like, either that or what if I were like drunk following? Like, what if like I'm super religious when I'm boozed up?
That is what is happening.
It's not, because I never get like that.
I'm going to start monitoring your activity.
You should.
Because
See who I follow?
think you...
I wonder who.
Because you do get silly when you're late at night and you start texting me stuff.
That's probably true. Yeah,
I could see you being like, oh, this lady from Austin looks interesting. Beep, boop, boop, boop.
Okay, I definitely would do that. I'm like, oh, cute outfit, follow. Then I'm like, the bar for a like is so high, but then a follow at 2:00 in the morning, oh, I'll do it to anybody.
You know, it really is disappointing to me that I haven't gone and done more nonsense in your accounts. What have I been doing with my life?
Maybe that's why you've gotten the privilege to have access to my account.
I feel like you would never take it away from me.
No, I would never.
Because you love me and you know how much it means to me.
I do. I wish it showed you the order that you followed people in.
It used to.
I did used to.
I know. They've really fucked up.
You know who's giving me life right now and I am so in love with? Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye.
Everyone's loving him.
Like the most.
Because he's emotional, right? Is that the thing?
And he sees you. Like he sees all those Queer Eye guys see the person.
Wow.
I know it. And when he talks and he's like, and he listens.
And that's why the show's doing so well.
The show, oh my God. I binge watched both seasons in like one sitting with Landon, and like we were both crying.
I haven't met anyone that didn't like it or didn't cry or whatever.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I'm
Are you following him?
Yeah, yep. That's what gave me that idea right now. And he gave me lists of things that you're doing wrong about your hair that you should be doing different.
I should follow him.
Yeah, for real.
Well, I've been posting, as you saw, because, you know, it's anytime it's sunny out, I'm going to be outside.
Are you about to talk about your bikini body?
Yeah.
Girl, you look so good.
Do you really think that?
What? Yes.
I don't know what's true anymore with you.
Well, I think that we give people, they get to see we have very different bodies, and it's nice that we get to showcase both hot bods in bathing suits and be proud of what we got.
Yeah, I've been in bikinis more often because we have a pool. It's not like that's not my new brand or something.
I thought it was. I'm like, damn, I am on board. Susie like gets a pool. I'm going to start I upped my bathing suit game. I went and bought one yesterday. I almost brought it here because I was like, we need to take more pool shots. I got to be competing with this broad.
I do really like though that you're right, that we have totally different body types and approaches to athleticism as well. And that I think that's so cool to celebrate both styles. Anyway,
I'm like, I need to get jacked.
No.
And Susie's like, I'm just like about consistency.
Yeah,
Yes.
I like to keep it real simple. I use Beachbody. People keep asking me, but they're like, what programs? I'm like, the shortest one.
See, this is one where you're like, people keep asking me, and they actually are asking you. Like, it's a real thing.
They are. They're just sort of like, whoa, I was thinking about doing Beachbody, and you know, what programs are you doing? Because they have yoga, they have P90X.
Yeah, what are you doing?
I just choose. You can sort by length of video.
Oh my God, you're so funny,
Sarah. And so I choose less than 10 minutes. And so that's what because that's doable for me.
Yes. Well, you found the thing that works for you, and that's really the trick, is just consistency.
Yeah, and what works for me wouldn't work for other people, and they have hundreds of effective workouts for all fitness levels, whether you're just sort of like me, more of a sitter, or if you're Sarah, more of a walker and a mover and a shaker. But I really do like them, and they keep me consistent and accountable. And our listeners can get a free special trial membership when you text Brain Candy, all one word, no spaces, to 303030. You get full access to the entire platform for free, all the workouts, nutrition information, and support totally free. Again, just text Brain Candy to 303030. Now, I want to introduce our guest, Lucas Mann, who kindly agreed to come on the show after I harassed him on Twitter. His book is called Captive Audience on Love and Reality TV. Excellent book. Everyone watches some reality TV.
Oh, yeah. It's impossible not to.
Yeah, whether it's like the competition shows like American Idol, or if you're into
Top Chef.
Yeah. And he really does such a great job of unpacking why we watch, why he watches, what it makes him feel. The most interesting parts for me were about like Rob Kardashian. He really talks a lot about that.
Well, because I think that anybody who, like we said, can see people, can see what's going on. Yeah. And it's a sad situation.
Yeah, and when he wrote the book, it was before it got really sad. But even at the time he wrote it, you know how like Rob was kind of on, but he didn't want to be. Yeah. And there was this weird disconnect between like his sisters and how they've used the medium versus him and how he felt about it. It was clear that it's like a nightmare.
Nightmare. Oh my God, it looks like that.
So, I really recommend this book if you want to like take a little bit of a closer look at reality TV, but it's not like dense and, academic or anything. Yeah. It's like from a viewer's point of view.
That's cool.
Really good. And I think that the interview will shed some light on his style, but it's Lucas Mann and it's Captive Audience on Love and Reality TV. Welcome to the show. Okay, first of all, congratulations on your book, Fancy. I mean, I freaking loved it, and I'm so glad I harassed you into talking to me.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad that you not harassed me, but just got in touch with me.
Are people like barking up your tree big time now because it was such an awesome book?
No, I could stand to do with a little more tree barking. It's one thing that is interesting to me. I think this is my third book, but maybe comes into more clear relief writing about people who are actually celebrities in some way, is sort of how quiet books are. That whatever sort of voraciousness exists for TV just doesn't, at least for most books.
Right. So you might be saying these really big things, but it might feel like a whisper in terms of all the noise of everything else.
Yeah. And I would say, and this is just speaking for me, but I think talking to other writer folks too, I do think that like the past few years or the past couple years somehow feel it's even more strange to sort of put a book that you've spent years on out into a world that is, has a lot of things to talk about very fast.
Right. Well, and you kind of even spoke to that at the end of the book when you mentioned how reality TV itself is so fast in its evolution or de-evolution, whatever. And like the characters that you mention, their lives have dramatically changed even since you wrote the pages. And that's a strange thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things that I think surprised me of how strange it was, like I wasn't trying to, when I was writing, sit down and sort of be as up to date on everything that I was writing, but I was, writing is a slow process in a lot of ways. So I'd be writing about these thoughts that I had and these memories that I had and what felt really recent about these people that I'd seen on TV. And then I'd be writing something and then happen to read an article online that would suggest that everything that I had felt about the scenario that I was watching on a show had like radically changed in the 2 months that I hadn't watched. And it felt really weird how the timing of writing versus the timing of reality TV celebrity felt like exactly the opposite for a while.
Right. Well, because I have never written a book, but I imagine that it is a very strange and isolating experience, and you're totally immersed in this content, and then all the while the rest of the world is moving. It's like Narnia or something.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And it's even stranger, I think, or I've found, I guess, this time when you're writing about the world that's moving so fast. Right. It can be kind of comforting to write a book where you're like, great, the world's moving, but I'm in the middle of this book which isn't moving, and so I can just sort of be here.
Well, it's fantastic, and I cannot wait for our listeners to read it so that I can talk to them about it, because obviously my co-host and I have an incentive to be interested in this topic, but you did such a wonderful job of describing it, because you're a consumer of reality TV, but you wrapped it up within your own love story and your own narrative. And I wondered why you chose to take that approach.
Yeah, so first of all, like just reading about your podcast, and then the fact that you guys are coming from the background that you're coming from and talking about this stuff outside of that, like it just feels perfect. So I appreciate that. And then, for me as a viewer, like I realized that I wanted to write about these shows that I watch and love, and I wanted to try to write about it in a way that felt like it sort of honored the fact that whatever you want to say about various reality TV shows, like if you're a fan of them, they play a pretty big part in your life. You spend a good deal of time watching them and talking about them. And then through that, I sort of realized that maybe more than other forms of media, I think there's something social about watching reality TV that might stem from this like weird, it's almost like you don't want to admit to drinking alone, that you want it to be this shared thing. And so for me, it sort of became obvious that like actually me talking about my history as somebody watching and thinking about reality TV was also essentially like tracing the history of my relationship with my wife, and this weird thing that, for better or worse, a good chunk of our time spent together has involved like, sitting down and watching and really enjoying Vanderpump Rules, for example, that thing is a fabric of sort of our shared lived experience, whether we acknowledge it or not.
So I am not a viewer of Vanderpump Rules, but I'm aware of how people are obsessed with it. And I'm wondering, what is it about that show in particular that is so addicting and it captures their attention?
Yeah, so for me, and I feel like sort of a hipster with a band. I feel like I got in early on Vanderpump Rules. Right. But there was something in like 2011 or 12 when we started watching it, my wife and I, it felt like this weird, like the idea of reality TV in my mind, they had stripped it down to like its most essential thing, that there was no, like that these were people who wanted to be actors and models and music stars, and in some cases were sort of quasi on their way to that, but in the meantime were being good looking and waiting tables in LA. And then like there was no pretense of anything other than them wanting to be on screen and wanting attention. And it was just sort of, so it felt like all of the, everything within the Real Housewives shows where it's like, theoretically, the thing that brings them all together is their wealth, or, people who fix motorcycles. The reason why you're watching their lives is they have this skill. And this just sort of felt like, no, none of that. They are attractive and they desire stardom and they're living for it. And it just felt like pure.
Okay, but then whenever you interviewed that guy from the show, why do you think it was that he kind of has this script that he sticks to, when if, he's just a guy that's handsome and wants to be famous, why can't he just say whatever? Like, why is he sticking to that script all the time?
Yeah, that was super interesting for me. And Jax Taylor is the guy that I wrote this profile about and then wrote about in the book. And it was sort of like a really crystallized version of something that I guess I was thinking about in the whole book, in like this weird relationship between like authenticity and performance. So he was sort of constantly talking about authenticity and talking about the fact that what made his show good and what made him proud of his show is that they were authentic, that they were just these people who were already friends, and then the cameras came around and they were just being themselves. But then, like you say, he was so good at this very particular performance that had been set up that really worked for me. And so it was less more in my mind of like, why is he doing this? And this strange sense of like, okay, on the one hand, I feel like this is a betrayal because I wanted him to somehow share his real self with me. But on the other hand, he was doing this thing that he does so well. And that in the moment when I was talking to him, I was totally captivated by it. And then it just kind of made me think about a lot of the other shows that I really like, where it is this weird sense where you don't necessarily think that you're seeing authentic, truthful, or even unscripted content. But if you are enjoying it, there's something about the person's performance that feels authentic, even if that seems like an oxymoron.
Right. Like he was performing authenticity.
Right.
That's
exactly.
so freaking weird.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, so, I mean, in the end, did that article end up being published about him?
It did,
like
yeah.
Okay, and did he comment on it, or did you get any feedback from him?
No, I did. I got no feedback from him. To be perfectly honest, I got, in the article, I wrote about the fact that his PR person was there with us the whole time.
Yeah.
Because that was something that in retrospect should not have surprised me. But if this guy is sort of professionally open, it seems sort of weird that we were sort of being shadowed by this PR presence, which I was kind of into at a certain point and put in the article. And then I got a displeased email from that PR person. But I never heard from him. I have no idea how he felt about it.
Well, that was very fascinating for me because I mean, for the same reason it was fascinating to you. That was a weird thing. But, okay, here's what I want to talk about. Rob Kardashian.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that nonsense. So in the book,
okay,
you talk a lot about Rob. And then, of course, at the end, you're like, P.S., since I wrote the book, he took a turn for the worst or whatever.
Yeah.
I just want you to unpack Rob for a hot second.
Yeah. So as to the latter part, right? And, you know, in a lot of ways that it feels like are happening to famous men that I have been interested in the past couple of years. There's all of this sort of almost by the numbers revelation that like actually all the things that for some reason read to me as like a, you know, recognizable and compelling sad boy, that there's actually like a lot of really sinister shit wrapped up in sad boyness.
Yeah, that both can be true.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for watching him on the show then, it was just sort of, he just seemed to carry the burden of being on TV, in a way that seemed like he just wasn't as happy with it or as good at it as his sisters or his mother were. And in a very strange way, I think he became, for me, the most compelling part of the show, because you were watching all these people do so well under sort of the bright lights. And then he was like in stark relief next to them. And it almost felt like offered up as a reminder of like what it would feel like if you weren't Kim Kardashian to have that kind of attention on you.
Well, cause he seems like, I guess I wonder why more people in that position, to varying degrees, don't react the way he does. Why aren't there more people that are like, this is this it? This feels hollow, unfulfilling. That seems to be what he was struggling with. And I wonder why that isn't the case for more people, because that's what I felt, and that's why I hit the road and quit doing it. But why don't we see more of that?
Yeah, I mean, it would be really, I'm interested in your perspective on sort of coming out on the other end. And so for me, I can't answer that. But what I was thinking then was that so much of the appeal for viewers, I think, is that you kind of, even if it's subconscious, are always having to ask yourself, like, why are they still here? Like, is this worth it? And then in some cases, you sort of see people seem to like Rob really interact more overtly with like, is this worth it? But then even, there's like I think on the sort of Bravo housewife shows, for whatever reason, it seemed like the reunion episodes get longer and longer and longer, and often those are so pained. And you literally, they after the commercial breaks, they show you a clip of a person having stormed off to the dressing room saying, like, I don't want to go back out there. I don't want to go back out there. And they're actually sort of making explicit this negotiation that they have to have, which somehow makes it even more compelling when they go back out there. So in some ways, it feels like the producers have almost like anticipated the question that you're asking and like written it into the narrative of the shows.
Yes. You're so good at this. Like, this is why your book is great, because you have been able to, you've basically cracked the case on how they do it and what they're doing and why it's simultaneously repulsive and attractive. But that's why I feel like I have to read your book again, because there's so much that you do with the genre. So whenever you're consuming it, because you and your wife enjoy these shows, do you kind of talk in the book about how there are various explanations for why otherwise decent people would watch these shows, and like loneliness or whatever. And do you think it's just different for each person, or did you come to a conclusion about what is the appeal?
I think for me, like, I ultimately, by the end of the book, there were maybe parts in the book where it felt like I was trying to come to a clear conclusion or even sort of like come to a defense of these shows. Mm-hmm. And then it ended up sort of being more of like the questions were more interesting for me. And I didn't really feel like there was a conclusion. And I guess I'm more aligned with this idea of people have their reasons for engaging with sort of any form of art or popular culture. And that the most compelling people that write about reality TV to me, there's like a lot of scholars that I talk to and write about. A lot of the stuff that was most compelling was this emphasis on like whatever you want to say about why people are watching these shows and if it's good or bad, there were like really intense active engagements that are happening for each person. So like whether it's good or bad, it's certainly not mindless. And that's the one thing that it did feel like to me. It was like, this doesn't feel mindless. This feels like a constantly shifting and fraught experience. And so I'm sure that mine is different from a lot of other people's, but I would be willing to say that I don't think writing anybody's fandom of reality TV off is just sort of like, I'm tired after a day of work and I want to turn my mind off. I just don't think that that's it.
Okay. So I have a question that I have asked into the ether for years, and I'm thinking that maybe you're the man that can finally answer it for me. So no pressure. So whenever you're on these shows, there's this weird relationship between me as a cast member and the viewer, where they might know who I am, they might know my name, they might know that I was on a particular show, and they might want to talk about it, even if they just see me at the mall or at a restaurant or whatever. But yet they also kind of are disgusted by me for being on the show. And I wonder why it is that the viewers of reality TV tend to like look down upon the people that are participating on the shows that they are themselves watching.
That's really interesting. And it's interesting to you because I guess I've always sort of wondered what that experience was like.
It sucks, man.
It must be so weird to have somebody be like, hey, like you resonated enough with me that I notice you, but then also,
right.
It's so, I mean, one of the things that I talked about with this one scholar, Mark Andreevich, was this idea of like, he called it like a sort of like American Puritanism kind of thing, where it's this, people are really uncomfortable with somebody getting something that they don't have without there being a discernible way to say that, oh, they earned it this way, this sort of like weird false idea of earning it. And so I started thinking about that in the book, of this idea of like, we love the idea of like having this, what feels like intimate access to celebrities. But then when you remove whatever the backstory of like, oh, like I'm really interested in George Clooney's married life because George Clooney is this actor, and you essentialize it into just like, oh, I feel like I know something about this person's life. They're more famous than me, but how come they're more famous than me if I can't exactly put my finger on what it is that makes them more deserving, I guess?
Yeah.
I don't know if that seems potentially right.
That is as good as an answer as any, because I always find it strange. Like, I get it that a lot of reality people behave in a way that's unsavory, so we can, judge that from our couches. But we're on our couches and they're at least on the show, so we could say maybe something nice.
And there's also, for me, one of the things that ended up sort of happening writing the book was more and more sort of being interested in, every book that I've written has been in some way personal and in some way sort of memoir-ish. And so, certainly because people don't read books, there isn't like the fame, but there is that sense of this weird thing of part of what you're doing feels like you are doing some sort of performance of yourself, that feels like this distinct thing that lives in that moment, that is providing somebody with entertainment or whatever. And then you actually encounter somebody who doesn't know you, but feels like they know you, and then feels like they have a right to judge you. And so the sort of similarities between those impulses definitely clicked in my head during the book.
What did your wife think about being included?
Yeah, she, I think there's even a part later in the book where it sort of talks about her reading an early draft, and being like, Jesus, this feels like I'm being watched.
Right.
And, I think her process with it, like, she read multiple drafts and talked about it a lot. And then by the end was like a real cheerleader about it. But there definitely there was sort of a conversation throughout it that sort of went from her being like, this is uncomfortable, to her being like, I specifically don't understand what's happening here. Yeah. And so I can't speak to that other than just her being really generous ultimately. And then also there were things where I was like, look, if there are scenes that feel not worth it or not right, tell me to take them out. And she did, and I did.
Oh, okay. So she vetoed some stuff.
For sure.
Oh, okay. That's good. I agree with her and not you about intervention. I don't understand your like, you feel that it's low-hanging fruit, it seems, right?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, there's like a very specific thing that makes intervention interesting, in that I had a brother who died of an overdose. So it's like whatever, it always felt like a thing almost that I needed to say, like, this is too far.
Okay.
But then ultimately it couldn't have been too far, right? Because I sort of performed the fact that I was disgusted by it, but then we watched all the shows together.
Yeah, but like, don't you feel like their mission, at least superficially, is altruistic?
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I think that one of the things that is both really compelling about reality TV, but also maybe dangerous, is the sense that, like, a narrative is built around things that might otherwise just sort of be like senseless things that happen. And so I think what I was maybe resistant to in that, although again ended up loving a lot of episodes, was this idea that, like, you could reduce addiction into like, there was a trauma, this thing happened, and now we are healing this person. That seemed sort of like a particular arena in which making a narrative out of people's messy lives felt like more loaded for me.
Okay.
But in some ways, I think that's happening on every show. I mean, that's right. You're making 40 cohesive minutes out of just people's lives.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, though, that it's reductive and doesn't allow for much nuance in terms of how addiction occurs. I don't know. I feel like,
but then again, like a lot of things do. Like I think I don't think intervention is alone in in reducing addiction. You know?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I just actually got off the phone doing another interview with this guy named John Brennan, who was on season 2 of The Real World, the one that was in Los Angeles, and he wore a cowboy hat. And I was so excited to talk to him because I really loved to hear what it was like for those people where there really wasn't any other reality TV at the time that he filmed. Yeah. And I do think it was a more, I don't know, it seemed more noble and pure. And that's at least their impression of it whilst filming, the people that I have spoken to, that they felt like they weren't being manipulated or anything. Do you feel like, because you even talk about the San Francisco Real World, and like people often refer to that and the way that they dealt with Pedro and the HIV positive issue. And you kind of said that we all hope that that's what it could be, reality TV. And then it wasn't ever again. Why do you think that is? Because it was such an important season and did good things, at least it seemed. Why didn't they keep doing that, Lucas? Answer me.
Did you feel did you, like when you were on the show, not to turn it around, but like, did you feel like you identified, like, did it feel different than what you had watched that came before? And then when you watched later seasons, where you're like, oh, this seems like a sort of bastardized version of what we did?
Yeah, for me, I started in 1998, so it was before the other shows like Survivor and stuff. And then as soon as Survivor aired, everything changed in terms of production. Because there was more competition, I guess, and they thought they had to do things that, vote people off and create more drama. But those early days, I really felt like it was about good storytelling and honest narratives, and everyone was in on it. Like, we knew we were being exploited a little bit, but we could get something out of it, so it felt like a fair trade.
Yeah.
But then it didn't anymore afterwards.
That's really interesting. Like this, I like that it was like, look, everybody always knew that what was happening, but then if the trade just becomes not fair at a certain point.
Yeah, like the cost benefit analysis.
That's super interesting. I do think, I think you're right, or like, at least for me as a viewer, it definitely, you look back on earlier Real Worlds, and then even like earlier, just even from that sort of like Survivor boom era, things feel somehow different then than they do now. But I also think it's interesting that at every point in, and I read about this a little, like at every point in what you would want to call reality TV's lineage, people have always, like reviewers have always not been comfortable with and didn't like what was there. Yeah. Like, it's not like people watched the first season of The Real World and were like, yes, this is important documentary.
Right, you're right.
People turned up their noses at it.
Yeah.
And then so it feels like every generation, there's a nostalgia for this purity that came before. But then if you look then, everybody was sort of up in arms about like, this can't be real. These people don't even know each other. And now they're living in a house. Like, this doesn't make any sense,
Well, but
so I think it's both.
Don't you think, though, that the Pedro storyline did feel like important, and that this could be really a way that the genre moves forward? And then it turns out it felt like it ended up being just an exception.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And I think I read about it in the book that, I remember being in high school and feeling like something changed on the Real World Las Vegas season. And then it was interesting to then read scholarship that identifies like the Real World Las Vegas season as this thing where whatever hopes for having another Pedro kind of thing were shelved. And it was like, they're at the top of the casino. There's a jacuzzi big enough to fit 4 people. And, we're just going to roll.
Right. Like our hopes died in that hot tub.
Right. Or, at the time, my like 14-year-old hopes were exactly on point. But in retrospect,
right. Right. Maybe that's why it continued on in that vein, though, because that was appealing to the viewer on some level.
Right. No, for sure. I would imagine so.
What do you think about, how obviously people refer to the whole situation as the guilty pleasure whatever Bachelor show they watch or Housewives.
Yeah.
And that there's this intrinsic idea of shame within that you talk about in the book. Can you describe what you mean by that when you write about it?
Yeah, that sort of the idea of a guilty pleasure, I actually think that if that does exist, then it exists in a more like that the guilt is part of the pleasure.
Yeah.
And so I don't think for me, and I think for a lot of people, you can't separate the experience of watching these shows and being a fan of these shows with the knowledge of the fact that you wouldn't necessarily like to tell everybody in your life about the fact that you watch these shows, or that you sort of, that there's something covert about it. And that when I think about it, for me, this spending a decent amount of my evenings watching these shows with my wife when we could be doing other things, that sense of, oh man, like, why are we doing this? Are we not better than this? Even as we're enjoying it, that's sort of that's always been part of what the experience is. And I can't really separate all of these feelings of sort of shame and self-questioning from the pleasure of watching.
Well, I mean, right. And that's the thing, is that there's no answer to all of this. Now you're my therapist, and I apologize. But like, I appreciate that you're continuing this dialogue, because whether people like it or not, this is an important part of our popular culture, and the things that people consume have consequences. And I think you did such a great job in your piece in The Atlantic talking about the Trump reality TV connection. And don't you think like that's why this conversation has to take place?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's a really uncomfortable conversation to have, obviously. And in some ways, for a lot of people, myself included, Trump's lineage as a reality star and then seeing him up there with actual power is the most intensely fraught thing to come out of participating in reality TV culture. But it seems like one option that people are taking is to write it as though I see none of myself in this. I see none of my participation in this. Or, I mentioned late in the book, like, the writer Jennifer Weiner wrote a piece for the New York Times that was sort of like, I used to love The Bachelor back when I didn't realize the stakes that it had. Now Donald Trump's president, his brand of reality TV misogyny is running the world. I'll never watch The Bachelor again.
Yes.
And I totally get that impulse, but I don't know if that's more productive than being like, why do I like The Bachelor? What is it about this that, as much as I don't want it to be, is appealing, and that I sort of find a certain amount of my enjoyment and identity in? I think those are much harder things to think about. But I don't think we can just turn our minds off into, oh, now I'm a person who has more altruistic interests, and leave it all behind. You know?
Well, that's why your book is amazing. Again, it's like dealing with these bigger questions about, what are my desires? What do I crave? What do I lack? And in what way is reality TV or other, entertainment filling those voids? And it's such a great book. So I don't know. I could go on and on. I really have a million more questions, but I'll spare you because I've already gone too long. But we ask everybody one question at the end, which is, what do you keep in the trunk of your car if you have a car?
I do.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
God, what do I keep in the trunk of my car? Just like a ice scraper for the winter.
That's it?
Yeah, it's pretty weak. Or actually, I'm a college professor, and I think also the only time I ever use like a graduation gown is when I go to my student's graduation, and then I think I just throw it in the trunk the rest of the year. So
God, that's so sad.
I know, right? Yeah, only the bare essentials.
You know what? That says something. I will have to analyze your answer, because we believe it tells us who you are at this moment in your life, whatever's in your trunk.
If I would have known that, I would have lied.
No, I like it. It's an ice scraper, which is very practical, useful, and also tells us where what climate you live in.
You're right,
and then, that you're a university professor that doesn't believe in folding clothes or putting them in a closet.
Those are all true things.
Well, you're off the hook. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and I cannot wait to
hear
Thank you.
This was great.
Everybody's feedback on your amazing book.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, and I will let you know when it posts, and I'll keep singing your praises because you're awesome.
Thanks. This was really fun. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, for real. I'll probably send you like a million follow-up questions because I'm obsessed.
Sure.
But I'll let you go for now.
Thanks. And if you are around LA when I think the reading is on June 6th, but I'm around for a couple of days. I'd love to say hi.
Yes, I will harass you again because I want to make that happen.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.